Alright, so my initial area, what I started with was most of what's this manufacturing district now, and the low density residential areas up here. Eventually I kept growing eastward until I started doing more high density residential offices and, dense commercial. Made a pretty much a grid layout for the downtown area of the city. I tried to mix residential and commercial, like on alternate streets, and then put some pedestrian walkways in there so that people could walk to their jobs. Also put a bunch of policies like high-tech housing and stuff to get the property values up. The high density residential, when it's level 5, is like super tax rich. It's not too hard to do in a downtown area. This big freeway came later, but mostly it was just this main road. Eventually I expanded a smaller road into this main road over here. After a while I wanted to put more industry, but I didn't want to get it too close to any sort of town, so I ended up making, residential areas rather. I ended up making a bunch of forestry districts, thinking that I can keep the pollution under control. My original intent was to have this whole thing become this big industrial and office area, and the people would live over here and travel over here to just keep them separate, but I realized that people weren't taking up the jobs so easily, with so much distance between my downtown area and the new industrial office district, so I ended up building a plot of high-rise housing. Something's on fire there. Which I started like with 2 rows, and I just added 1 row as the residential demand grew. A couple of office complexes here, some shopping centers. Made like a lower density residential zone over here. This was originally going to be more forestry area and more general industrial down here, but I found as my city grew, the demand for low education jobs dried up, so I just gradually dezoned it for industrial and just started adding more and more office complexes. So it's kind of boring here with the wall-to-wall office complexes over here. I keep trying to put residential stuff next to rivers because I figured it's nice, but it's not really nice being downwind of all the sewage and all that. My interchange over here is pretty complex looking. I basically just added one part at a time to cure traffic problems as they came. Like I'd build this here, and then there'd be a big traffic buildup here, so I'd make another overpass here, and so on, until eventually just solving all these individual problems left me with this network of interchanges. This is the main freeway exit that feeds my city, but there's pretty much, you could get to either side of this from, this is this highway here I built myself to loop around my city here. It goes all around to the major districts on this side. Has exits at like the major highways for the, oops, is that one lane road? No. The main arteries going through the city. But yeah, even it looks like a mess, it actually works pretty well. As you can see, there's no particular holdups on the traffic flow. I do have some intersections that are like absurdly deadly. Like I call this one the Widowmaker, because you can get on the freeway at a bad angle and exit right off, and all sorts of deadly. So I wasn't sure if I should go for something that looked realistic or just go for functionality and smooth it out later, but there are clearly a few places that are very silly looking. But other than this, occasionally having a huge load, if there's a lot of resources coming through, there's not really much traffic jams out down there. I'm thinking I'm thinking about expanding these 2 districts to build more off of the west side, but I eventually got cargo harbors, and I decided to build a district around shipping out industrial products through this harbor over here. So my original plan was to have a lot more forestry stuff and some general industrial, but again, the jobs dried up for the low-educated stuff, so I ended up converting a lot of them to office space. I found that I needed workers on this side, or people weren't getting here easily enough, so I made this little separated high-density complex, some offices here, but mostly residential, so they can get to the jobs. I made a mall. I don't know if it's a good strategy to use a mall or not, where it's just like a bunch of high-density commercial right in one spot. Like, I don't know if people will shop in a logical way there, but it makes sense from like a city design perspective. Some more office buildings. This was going to be the dirty industrial part of town, but turns out that you can see this has been out here for a while. They're having trouble filling up the job, so my town is over needing industrial, it seems like. I built this little residential neighborhood here for the people that worked in the industrial zone to live in. I was hoping that I wouldn't keep the property values too high in the hopes of attracting low-income workers or low-education workers to work the crappy factory jobs, but those weren't getting any people anyway, so I ended up just making it pretty nice over here, put in a few parks. I decided that it would look cool. Well, I'll show you that in a minute. I decided it would look cool if I put a bunch of high-rises along this river here, or the ocean rather. So that's the reasoning behind that. This is my touristy, beachy, recreational area. I've got a cruise ship harbor that comes in and drops off tourists. I'm not sure exactly how that works yet. It seems to drop off a lot of my own people rather than tourists. This is the London Eye, a copy of it that I got off the mod workshop. And tons of little, like, little beachy parks, basically, with the sand texture. They end up sitting on the hill because they have to be roadside, and creating the road would create it has to have a level platform, so it would end up creating like a dip like that. It's hard to, I got it a little smoother out here because it's a little flatter, but I grabbed like 15 different kinds of beach park mods on the workshop, put all that stuff here. I figured it's, between like my hotel here and the opera house and museums, the circus, the science center, aquarium. I've got all the attractions over here. I even have go-kart racing, although it said it was supposed to work, but I just installed it and I haven't seen anyone yet, so I don't know if they actually drive around. I doubt they do, because I don't see why the game would have that as a feature, but decided to give it a chance. I just recently connected my main part of my city. It was originally I had trains bringing people from the main part of the city to the beach district, and you can see I've actually got several chains lined with multiple bypasses so that I can share some of the tracks between multiple passenger routes, and this is a cargo route here. So I have routes that run from here to here, here to here, here to here, and one that runs all three. Ends up looking kind of complicated, but I've figured out that it's there's the least amount of holdups while they can still share tracks a decent bit. I decided I needed some more low-density residential, and I decided that instead of having nice grids, I would make things a little bit windy and weird, just to kind of add visual flavor to the map instead of just having a lot of efficient grids. And so this is my start of a new residential zone over here. I end up having a complex network of railroads going over railroads with the road on top. I'm sure the noise is not great for the residential zones. You can see the... Oh, actually it's not bad at all. The trains don't create too much noise, apparently. I thought they would be really problematic for residential areas. Here's the more trains. There's a cargo train that runs to what was going to be a big industrial district, and a passenger train that runs there too. I also have a cargo train that runs here to like my cargo pickup area for my original industrial zone, and then another one across the freeway to what was this industrial zone. Turns out by the time I got all this cargo transit tonnage up between the harbor and all the trains and stuff, that's when my industry was really dying, so it turned out not to need them. Before I got all that stuff done, my cities were flooded with trucks, but then now the trains barely have anything to ship. But better have too much than too little. Oh, and I created I decided to make a highway that branches off from my main highway. First, this was meant to be my, like, rich, nice, touristy, not tourist, but just, like, the richer district where it was pretty isolated from the rest of the town and had a lake view and was nice and quiet. Mostly low density. There's a little bit of high density along this wise. There's a little bit of a commercial district in there. A big cathedral I pulled off the mod shop. But lots of parks. Big park here, big pool here. There's a soccer stadium thing. Not a stadium, but just a soccer field. That's weird. This thing is supposed to have goalposts here, but doesn't. So I guess it's not much of a soccer field. Then little flowery walkways and such. But I kept the traffic pretty well isolated from this and tried to keep everything nice over there. I connected it to my mall over here by footpaths, but not by roads, because I didn't want through traffic coming through here and clogging up my nice district. Oh, and then I made the extra freeway, which is not complete yet, to go down to an airport. I extended my train station network to go branch off from my cargo trains and come down here so that people can go directly from the trains back to the airport, but not a ton of people using that yet. This is unfinished. I think I'm eventually going to wrap it around. When I buy these sectors, I'll wrap it around here and then back around here, so it'll be a loop for the west side of the city once I have more industries and offices over this way. But for now it's just incomplete, so people can get to the airport. I've got 45 bus routes or something like that, 47. You can't really see much from the overall grid. I have 2 bus hubs, basically here and here by my university, so that like 10 different bus hubs are accessible in the same stops. I also have a metro system that runs here, and around to here. So it circulates through my big downtown area pretty well, as well as a stop in the manufacturing district to get people to their jobs. I've got 3 or 4 bus lines running in the little circular area there, and I probably should add another bus route. I had one go from the residential area to cover the manufacturing, but I've built up a lot more offices since then, so I should really have another residential line running between all these offices and stuff. Bus lines that run from like here and the train station through Lakeview, and I don't know, I've not experimented too much with bus line design yet. I've only got one running through all those different office complexes that runs to the residential areas. I'll probably just put another one that just kind of touches them from the outside. I've got a nuke plant that supplies most of my power over here, way on the edge of the map. I'm not even running it at full capacity, but it pretty much does as much power generation as all my other little facilities. Like I have a dam up here and a solar plant somewhere else and a bunch of windmills over here. I have incinerators all over the place. I hate running them because I hate having pollution, so I've been trying to centralize them in the crappy areas anyway, like this district and this one, but you end up having garbage on the extremities of towns not picked up very quickly if you don't have enough spread out incinerators. So like I didn't want to put one in my nice beachy district, so I made a bridge all the way across here just to hold an incinerator. Water's boring, you don't need to know much about that. Everyone's very happy. I don't know why my commercial lags behind everything else, but pretty much everything's blue except some of the industrial areas are not too happy. I must have overbuilt commercial at some point because I've had commercial zones available for a long time, like here and here, and they're just not popping up at all. I've had 0 commercial demand for a while now. But it's my city's steadily growing with the office and residential demand, so trying to decide on my next place to expand. I'm going to flesh this out a little bit more, but Not sure if I should expand this way or buy out the sector over here to expand this way or whatnot yet. Traffic is actually really good almost everywhere. I mean, even my worst areas like this are not that bad for a big downtown area in a city. They really use the mass transit a whole lot. Like, you can tell, like, this is like the main artery of my city, and yet this is the worst it gets. This is not bad at all in the industrial zone. It gets a little bit jammed out on the main avenue on the, because well, you have to go through this draw to pretty much branch out into different parts of the industrial district, and the various interchanges create a decent amount of intersections. So there's always some traffic here, but it never gets too bad. Similar to here, the highway off-ramp that goes in the industrial district can get overloaded with trucks, deliveries, and such, but it's never too bad. That's pretty much the worst of it. Everywhere else is pretty clean. But none of them have too significant of a hold up. I designed an overpass this way because it used to be, I used to have this road go both ways, and people would take a left here, and then a right here, and then a left here to get to that, to the exit to the freeways, and it would just take forever, so I closed off that path, made this a one-way, and then made them all take the overpass. It's been a lot smoother since then. Noise pollution. See, focused heavily around the manufacturing districts here and here. The residential districts are for the most part fairly quiet. The office buildings are a little louder than you would think. So there is probably devaluing my stuff downtown. Got to add, I've got the traffic. There were traffic problems down in this area, and they're not so severe anymore. So I can't really show them. I have like two one-way roads, one going south and one going north, with like kind of malls, big malls on either side. But overall, I've done a fairly good job of keeping the noisy industrial districts away from the nicer residential districts. Crime has always been like a non-factor. I don't even fully fund the police, and I've never been above like a 5% crime rate with no like red areas at all. Population basically shows the distribution of my high density residential. Got the main district. This one over here, over there, yeah. Although that's... why is this showing up in my population? These are all... oh, are these residences? I thought these were... crap. I think I might have zoned this as residential when I meant to do it as offices. Because I didn't put enough parks and stuff there like I normally would have, and I don't like them being next to this noisy train depot. Oh, crap, I'd hate to de-zone it after everyone's like pretty happy in their new homes with like level 4 buildings and stuff. Maybe I'll leave it. Ugh, I feel weird about that now. Anyway, that was an accident. I meant to put more office buildings there. Land value is really good down in the city. Like that's where like a lot of my tax revenue comes from there, and then the little nice areas I made over here. Districts, yeah. I do like the district system a lot. I've got, I use high-tech housing in a lot of the high-rise residential areas. It really helps the property value go up, and you end up making more back in tax revenue than you spend on it. Schools, I have a pretty even distribution around population centers. A bunch of high schools in here. One university, kind of in the center of town. Health, I never quite got... you need to have so much coverage to keep your roads green for like ambulance availability, but it seemed like the health need never scaled up to that because I've always had like way more beds than I would ever need. And I also have crematoriums all over the place, and they make people happy, like a service provided, so I mean, they don't generate pollution. I have crematoriums all over the place. They make people happy, and people complain really fast about the dead people piling up, so Wind doesn't matter. Fire coverage is green almost everywhere. I guess I should probably have another fire station up here by these high rises here. Might even need another one over there. I hate building a fire station way in the corner for just like one road or something, but then it makes people happy. So I already showed you in the last transit. I used to export a lot more than I import, but ever since I had to shut down a lot of my industries due to the lack of jobs, so at least my tourism is getting better. Yeah, forestry, natural resources, basically. I guess I could have a farm out here by the airport if I wanted to. And I have a crap load of parks. I've downloaded a lot of parks off the Model Workshop, so I have all sorts of form factors for parks to stick them in appropriate places. But every neighborhood is loaded with parks and plazas and nice stuff like that, especially this one, obviously. But even just in the city, I make sure to put a lot of parks. They really help with the land value and make it look nice, and pools, and even just the small little parks with a fountain and a swing set help quite a bit. So, that's pretty much it. I thought about, I have saved games from every, like, 2 hours of play or so. Thought about making, like, an animated GIF, like, take a screenshot from above the city with each 2 hours of play, just to show how the city was growing, but I'll have to become unlazy for that. But it might be interesting, because you could just see things pop up as you develop them, and as you remove them, develop new roads and stuff. It'd be an interesting way to look over your city. Alright, but thanks for watching, and take a video and post your own city.